Welcome to the podcast Running Toward. This podcast tells stories of ordinary people who couldn't look away once they saw the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted. Our guests share heartbreak that led them to take reluctant and unexpected small, faithful steps toward the most vulnerable in their communities. Not because they had a plan and not because they felt ready, but because they couldn't unsee their pain. You'll hear how people living normal lives discover that getting closer changed them. Their comfort mattered less, their grip on uncertainty faded, and their faith got feet in quiet, everyday ways. Ending the crisis for one or for all isn't a quick fix. It's a long, slow, often messy journey alongside one of the most overlooked and misunderstood groups in our community. Running Toward gives you a front row seat to the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted, and to the ordinary people who choose not to look away. Joining me today is my friend, Mike Sharrow. He and I have been friends for a long time. He's a husband to a beautiful wife, Jackie. He's a father. He spent time as a foster dad. He leads a company called C12 as their CEO. And he's also been a guy who's never been afraid to disrupt systems that weren't working. I'm super grateful to have him today because we go way back on this journey in foster care. And you're going to get to hear just some incredible stories along the way of the things that God did in the most unlikely ways, in the most unlikely spaces, and with several of the most unlikely people. So Mike, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure, Jen. I was thinking back, I think we've been dancing on this subject for 16 years.
Yes.
16, 17 years. And I think what's hilarious for you and I to do this first episode together is there are Christians out there who love adoption and fostering and orphan care, and maybe since little kids they dreamed about that. And you and I are bless their hearts.
Yes, precious.
We ain't them.
No way.
So I think the irony that two people having this conversation who maybe were on the not hated but had no interest spectrum talking about this
100%
is only God. So if you're someone who's this is your dream come true, God bless you. We need lots of you. But that's not how you and I got involved in this stuff.
No, absolutely. Kicking and screaming.
Kicking and screaming.
Uh-huh.
So I look forward to asking you because you've messed up my life. We have since started a couple ministries together, worked on nonprofit projects, done big things, but it all started actually at one point, we'll talk about more later. I remember the day you messed up my life, my wife and I be in the car being like, Team Sharrow, we're not getting involved in this space. Let's go support Jen and some other families. We'll buy a backpack. We're not doing this. Mm-hmm. And 2 hours later, you messed all that up. And it's cost me a lot of time.
I know. Yeah.
So, but let's explain why that makes all sense.
Right.
So, before you were executive director of the South Texas Alliance for Orphans, and before all this cool stuff, you were a normal human.
I was very.
Ish.
Very normal.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what was life before foster care became part of your world?
So grew up in West Texas, went to Texas Tech, got my undergrad, came down to San Antonio, got my grad degree or my master's in physical therapy, working as a physical therapist, married to love of my life. We had 2 biological daughters, 2 upward mobile careers, American dream, check.
Yeah.
Comfortable.
You weren't bored. You weren't looking for something new to do.
We were not. We were chasing 2 toddlers around. Mm-hmm. We were, going to a church, in local church here, Grace Point, and there wasn't there was a missing piece or anything in our lives that we were you know what, there's something stirring. It was God definitely smacked you upside the head with it. It was not something I was looking for.
So normal life. Weren't drawn to this. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't on your bucket list. This wasn't some sort of romantic thing for you at all.
No.
Okay, so something happened in 2006 that kind of scratched the record.
Yeah,
What was the article?
This was back in the day when you actually read, an actual newspaper.
Print, 3D?
Yeah, back in the day. I'm that old. But I was reading the newspaper and they had an article about a young lady who had been abused and neglected in her home. She had been placed in foster care. She had been abused and neglected in foster care, and now she had turned 18. And they were telling the story of how she is now called aged out, and that means the state of Texas is done being her parent, and she gets to go figure out life on her own. And frankly, it just pissed me off. I was like, are you kidding me? We live in America, and we have a young woman who had a hard beginning and then was put into a system that was supposed to be taking care of her and protecting her and providing for her, and it failed her too. And now the state of Texas was like, we're all done. Good luck. And I was like, God, you should do something.
So you got angry.
I got angry. It was very much this holy discontent. And I don't even know that I thought it was very much holy at the point. I was just angry. And I was like, God, you should do something. Literally shook my fist. And he was like, you should. And I was like, we're not talking about me.
I've done some work in DC and much different things, and I talk about this mythical person named Shirley. Yeah. That whenever we talk about get mad about something, well, surely someone's doing something about that. Surely someone should go fix that. Surely people know about this.
Right.
Surely someone is working on this. And I've basically been convinced there's no more Shirleys. Like there's Jennifers, there's Mikes, there's you. But I don't know who Shirley is, but she's not doing anything lately.
She's not. And so that was the wrestle for the next several months. It took me 2 months to even tell my husband that the Holy Spirit was stirring this in me, and I argued and, prayed, really argued with God as to why this was not the time. I was not the person. We were not the family.
Yeah.
This was not, we didn't cause this.
Sounds like Moses telling God, do you understand? Like, I don't speak well, I don't do this. Like,
right. I had all the excuses. I had a very compelling case.
You got young kids?
I shouldn't. Yeah, I had small children.
Do it later.
I had a career, full-time job. My husband has a full-time job. Like this, I felt like a very compelling case. However, it did not work out, and the Holy Spirit would not leave me alone. I finally shared it with my husband, and he literally looked at me and was like, I'll pray about it, but was like shaking his head no. And as the Holy Spirit does, he wrecked my husband's heart for it too, as he started hearing more about the stories. And by the end of that year, we were in classes to become a foster parents.
So I know we're going to talk about a hero to both of us in a second. And later we'll talk about like how you Jesus punched us, since I'm still guilty or angry about that. But part of when you did do that, and later fast forward, we get involved in foster care too, go through a normal agency. We'll talk about some of those differences. I remember the first time I really got exposed to how bad this was, and I got the sense of like holy anger, like this is a big deal. Yeah. Like, okay, this isn't just like they're starving kids in Africa. Like, this is like a big deal in my city. Right. And in fact, like there was kids on my street that were experiencing violence and horrible situations. I remember telling the social worker at the time, hey, this is such a big deal. You guys should be going and telling the church. Like, why don't you guys go tell the church? And she looked at me and she like wanted to pat me on the head. And she went, that's so sweet. We do tell the church, but Christians like to say we're going to pray about it. Right. And then they never do anything. And they don't like to get their hands dirty. Yeah. And as she said that, I got like double angry because I was like, ouch, that's not the church, but it is. If I don't do something, then I'm just like them. Right. And so, like, let's change the brand. The church should not be known to the world as the people who say, we're going to pray about it, but not like do hard stuff. So that person was a lady named Linda Hurtubise. Yes. So tell me about Linda, and what did that stir up in you spiritually?
So reluctantly, kicking and screaming, we start foster parent classes.
Which is a very normal way to start. It's okay to start kicking and screaming.
Listen, I was like, I will say yes, but man, I hope this is short and fast. But anyways, you start foster parent classes.
Did you almost hope you wouldn't pass the assessment?
Yeah,
wouldn't it be great if you didn't pass the home inspection?
They're going to be like, you know what? It's not. I tried, Lord. I tried. No, so we get in, and it's 35 hours of training, so you really get to know the lady that was training you. Her name was Linda, and Linda did not share my beliefs at all. She was agnostic, but an amazing woman who looked more like Jesus than a lot of the Christians that were around me, and frankly, me looked a lot more like Jesus than I did at the time. And
didn't she foster like over 200 kids at some point?
Yeah, Linda had fostered 200 teenage girls. Yeah, like
Mother Teresa,
the hardest of the hard, had put her life, had totally been selfless most of her life, taking care of these young ladies. But as we started doing the training, I was like, same as you. I was like, hey, you really should go tell my church about this. Like, so 1,200 people at the time, a church full of 1,200 Christians who I think this would make them angry also. And she looked at me and she was like, I've been to churches before, and I've put on meetings, and they don't show up. And that ultimately was the gut punch that lit the flame of what ultimately became the Alliance, because it was this realization for me. I had been very blind to it, of the fact that she was right. Like, I've been in the church since I was in diapers, born and raised, never once heard a sermon about kids in foster care or the vulnerable in that foster care system. I'd heard about orphans overseas.
Yep.
I'd heard about the ones that you adopt and bring here, and you know, this like hero's journey almost, but I'd never heard about the kids that were going to this daycare with my kids, or that were living in my neighborhood, or were down the street from me. I never heard about those kids. Never heard about how that was something that people in the church should be caring about, should be doing something about, or how unjust the system that they were in actually was, and how little it was actually functioning to help them.
I remember, because we were going to church together at the time, I remember there being I knew one family that was doing fostering, and I remember, frankly, the conversation was like, they're kind of weird, and they got weird issues, there's rules, and it was just almost like, it was almost like families who have kids with special needs,
Right.
or just kind of like they're a nuisance, but even less of a shared sense, like, what do we do to help them?
Right.
And likewise, I've grown up in the church. I had not sat through a single Sunday where anybody went and said, not only A, here's the problem, and
Right.
B, this isn't just something like, say a prayer, give $5 to,
Right.
but the church actually has a calling here.
Right.
I'd never heard that.
No, and I think by and large the church didn't see kids in foster care. You know, they like to quote James 1:27, widows and orphans. But I think by and large the church didn't see kids in foster care as functional orphans. Legally, they are not
right.
allowed to be with their mom and dad because of the stuff that's going on in the home. So as they sit right now, they don't have a mom and a dad that can take care of them. So who then steps up? The state of Texas? The state of Texas can't parent anybody. Have you ever been to the DMV? Like, you can't even get a driver's license.
Imagine them running parenting, yes.
You want them parenting kids?
Yeah.
No, and so I think that was part of the, reframing it for the church of like, hey, yes, they have living moms and dads. Hey, so did most of the orphans that you adopted from overseas, by the way, but whatever.
Long story,
We won't
yeah.
go into that. But they have living moms and dads, but functionally they don't have a mom and a dad caring for them right now. And somebody working at an orphanage or we called them emergency shelters, they can't be a mom and dad because they're working, we're working a job. They're not raising kids.
I nerded out after we got involved in this together. The origins of foster care is actually the early church.
Right.
Because the early church had such a high mortality rate that parents would die, 35, 40, leave kids, and kids just be put on the street to die. And it was the church that went, no, these are kids created in the image of God.
Right.
If they need help, we're going to. And so part of a membership covenant to join a church then was, the term godparent was everybody in a small group would basically be like, I'm signing up in advance that if anything happens to you, I'll take care of your kids and your kids. And everyone would be signed up to basically own at-risk kids with a 50-50 chance you'd have to actually deliver on that.
Right.
Can you imagine if church membership was conditional upon you will take in any at-risk kids in our city?
Churches would be a lot smaller.
We'd have more seating capacity.
We would not have seating. We would not need to be building buildings.
Or we wouldn't have prisons, homeless shelters, and human trafficking would not be a big
There's
deal.
that too. Exactly.
Like if the church was actually doing that model, I don't know if we can even grasp what the world would look like.
Well, the Alliance wouldn't need to exist.
You'd be unemployed.
I would be unemployed.
How awesome would that be?
I would love to be unemployed.
The mission is let's make Jennifer unemployed. we want to run you out of a job.
It would. I mean, that's been my goal since the beginning is I want to not be needed. I want this to be a thing that churches and Christians take on, and I don't have to be the one beating the drum.
Okay, so let's go back to you Jesus. I told hundreds of people that you Jesus punched us because the day you messed up my life, when you went from being sweet Jennifer at church, who was involved in ministries there,
Right.
to now meddling in my life,
Right.
was we're sitting strategically in the back of the room at a table, listening to you, applauding. There's a response card that had everything from buy backpacks, give money, do respite care to foster. Wife and I both agreed we'll do one of the top two things.
Right.
You were ending the night and you just got done explaining how bad the situation was, which was sobering. We didn't
Right.
realize how bad it was. So we're like, okay, that's a thing. And then you went, well, why don't Christians do this? And you made a list of reasons why Christians would choose not to do this. And as you're listing it, my wife's going, exactly. You were reading our mail. You're because you don't know what kind of kid you're going to get.
Right.
You don't know if they're going to have behavioral issues, medical issues, attitude issues. You don't know what the process would be like. It could mess up your home, your rhythms, your birth order stuff. You don't know if it's going to have care needs and expenses. You don't know if you may get this child and then lose the child because whether they get reunified as a family, which is a good thing,
Right.
or something else happens, and so you lose control and massive inconvenience. As you kind of got brutally honest, my wife and I were like, exactly. And then you said two things. You went, well, the same is true when you have biological kids. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. They have issues. They mess up your life. They're royally inconvenient. And you can lose your own kids, too,
Right.
to tragedies and all kinds of heartache.
Right.
And then B, are you okay knowing there's 4,000 or 5,000 kids in our city who do not have safety, do not have someone holding them, loving them? And are you willing to so idolize your emotional safety to say, let them sleep under a desk of a social worker?
Yeah.
Let them be housed in an emergency shelter just to protect my feelings?
Right.
And that's when my wife turned to me and went, well, crap. Now I have no reason other than my own preferences to say no.
Yeah.
Like, now it's disobedience just because I don't want to.
Because that was all stuff I wrestled with.
It's like, what were you most afraid of when you and Kyle still said yes?
When we said yes, we were only going to foster. We'd already decided. I mean, I know that some people go into foster care because they want to adopt. We were like, nah, we got 2 kids. We don't want to adopt. We'll just be a temporary home for a season, and then they'll let a kid move on to back home or to their next place.
Yep.
And I think I undervalued the fact that I couldn't guard my heart to the point where I wouldn't get hurt when they left.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I can do this without giving them my heart. And so when they leave, I'll be fine.
You're tough, but you are still human.
Right. So I think I undervalued that. I also did not understand how much, as we got into foster classes, I was like, oh my gosh, this is very controlling. Like, they are going to decide, they're going to be judging my parenting. They're going to be judging my house. They're going to be judging my life. They're going to be judging my marriage.
It's an annoying system.
Yeah. I was like, wow, I get this, young caseworkers who are going to be coming into my house telling me all the things that they think I'm not doing right or doing wrong. So, I mean, all of those things became more and more reality the deeper we got into it. But it also paralleled with the reality of, like, this is such a jacked up system. Like, how can I sleep at night knowing that there's an 18-month-old little girl this is her life. This is a system that's supposed to be serving her. And all I have to do is get judged by some people that I don't really care about, be inconvenienced, probably grieve and, be brokenhearted if and when the kiddo leaves. Like, I was like that. I can't stand before Jesus and be like, well, these are my reasons why I didn't do it. You're cool with that, right? Yeah. Like, there was no ground to stand on. And that's where I finally had to end my wrestle with the Lord of, like, okay, if this is what you want me to do and this is what it's going to cost, then but I think the beauty of getting to walk through all that is that I can go back and tell people, like, yeah, like, I wrestled with all of those things. All of that is perfectly normal. If you're not
rational, the real.
Yeah, if you're not wrestling with that, you're not really counting the cost.
Yep.
You really should be wrestling with, it's going to mess up. I mean, it's going to impact my kids. It's going to impact my marriage. It's going to impact my schedule. It's going to impact, my job. It's going to impact my sense of the world. My view of the world totally changed. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, those people on the street then became potentially biological moms and dads who also had the same story that the little girl I was holding had. And how could I sit here and judge them when I'm sitting here holding this baby, realizing that, but for the grace of God, it could be me, it could be her. Like, it just totally wrecked everything for me in the best of ways.
It's just, I mean, again, when you kept making the linkage, if you have got biological kids, I think that's the other part that burned me when I first met with Linda, going back to there for a second. When we were in one of the classes, someone asked us, like, hey, you and Jackie, okay, you guys married? Do you guys have jobs? We're like, yeah, we both have jobs. And like, oh, and are you infertile? We're like, no, actually, we have a kid. And like, oh, so you can have babies and you have a job. Christians don't do this kind of stuff then.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, foster care is not about meeting our need. Like,
right.
They're like, what's your motivation? My wife's like, obedience.
Yeah.
Like, this is straight up Jesus obedience. And they're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But then all the inconveniences, you think about, like, having kids is inconvenient.
Very.
Like,
very inconvenient. Very expensive. Very costly. Emotionally, physically, financially.
So it's no different. No. It just feels different because it's elective. I mean, having kids is elective too. Yeah. But as part of, like, that's part of love is
Yeah.
it's risky and costs you something.
I think that's what I love being able to do is reframing foster care for individuals, but also for church leaders of like, yeah, you don't get to control it. You're gonna have to sacrifice. I mean, I've talked to several church leaders, pastors, and been like, hey, that have been hesitant to call their people into foster care. I'm like, well, are you batting 1,000 on all the people you marry? So have you stopped calling people into marriage? Have you stopped? Are all the people who are parenting in your church nailing it? Like, are all their
Right.
kids doing great? No rebels, no like
No
prodigal
runaways,
children,
no drug issues, no teenage pregnancies.
So are you
Yeah.
discouraging them from having biological kids because that's not 100% successful? Like, so when you reframe it, it's almost like they've just been blind to that of like, for whatever reason, and it's got to be the enemy. For foster care, we can be like, oh, but in foster care, we're just not going to do that because it's hard, it's messy, it's not always successful, it's going to have a high cost. We have that in all the other areas in the things that we promote in the church too: marriage, having children. So, starting a business, it's all things that we're willing to do that in.
I remember being in a conversation with a church leader where, in pitching like, hey, more needs to be done here, it was just, hey, that's just not our thing as a church. That's just like some churches do, homeless ministry well, or they do missions better, and they're like, that's just not our thing. And that's just stuck with me because we, in America, had this weird idea that we get to choose which part of the Bible we choose to listen to or what part of Jesus. And there are certain things to be like, hey, you can't do all the things.
Right.
Like I can't be involved in every ministry, but a church doesn't get to say part of the Great Commission is not ours.
Right.
Like we don't get to say we don't do that.
Right.
You and I have a friend who once got up for a bunch of families who were like scared because I think he was afraid they were going to come out and hand babies out in the meeting. And he's like, hey, do I think every Christian should become a foster parent? No, some of you I don't think should be parents of your own kids, let alone someone else's kids.
I've said that line
right? Like he's like, hey, not everyone should do this. If you're watching this, not everybody in the world should become a foster parent, but everyone has a part to play.
Right.
And he went, so in this church, everyone in this church should have a part to play.
And also they should have the opportunity to know.
Correct.
That it's a root cause of so many things in our society. As a church, we'll talk about homeless. We'll talk about sex trafficking. We talk about prison population. Roll it back. Where did all of them start?
Isn't they started 70%?
They started in broken homes. They started in fatherless homes. They started in, trauma. And if we'd addressed it when they were 8, maybe we wouldn't have the 38-year-old who's now fathered 4 more kids.
Yeah, what percentage of the homeless population in our city, incarcerated population, like for like severe stuff, human trafficking, has their part of their origin story being in the foster care system?
So 40% of the homeless population, 40% of the prison population, and north of 76% of the victims of sex trafficking has spent time in foster care. It's a root.
So if you want to do one thing that can not only change your life, but can literally reduce like the single greatest upstream factor of homelessness, incarceration and recidivism, human trafficking, like talk about what a highly leveraged upstream thing.
Yeah, high ROI, huge ROI, because you get the 8-year-old who has had a traumatic beginning for whatever reason, many reasons, drugs, alcohol, violence, whatever, and they get to be in a healthy family, and maybe their family of origin gets it together because now they have time and they've gone to therapy, or maybe they don't ever get to go home because that just is too dysfunctional and they stay. But you get an 8-year-old who sees what normal family looks like. They get introduced to faith. They get to stay in one school for multiple years. They get to have, see healthy conflict in families and resolution, and you radically change their trajectory going forward, which means you impact not only this child, but generations down his family tree. And that's why I have a love-hate relationship with foster care, in that I hate that it exists, but I love that you can make such a huge impact on kids' lives. But then the other side of it is also the work that it does in you, because it just totally shreds all the lies and cute faith, pillow mug sayings that we like to hold on to. It just
let's roll back before we get too strategic. Let's go back. Okay, so you and Kyle go through the process, say yes, get a placement, baby, heart gets attached. It is truly a foster one. You don't get to keep that baby.
Right.
But then you guys don't be like, check, we did our foster care tour duty.
Right.
We get to be out of the game. You guys choose to re-engage.
We do.
what changes in you as Jennifer and Kyle? Like, what did God do spiritually, relationally, that made you guys stay in the game?
Yeah, I think what our first placement taught us, I mean, it taught me I have a lot of control issues. So that all got
There's
ripped
nothing
away.
wrong with that necessarily, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it didn't. I realized that I had control issues, so that got all like thrown out in the open, and I had to wrestle all that out. And then it also showed me that God had put this like fire for injustice in me, and that really came out in that because the way that the system treated her and her family was so unjust. It just, and more layers, just the longer I stayed in it, these more layers kept being peeled back, and I was like, dear goodness, like there's so much brokenness in the system. And now I can't look away. Like there was no scenario where after we had our first placement for a year and she went back that I was like, yeah, we're good. Like, I mean, that system is massively messed up, but I did tour of duty, check, box checked, I'm done. Like there was just no way I could do that because I'm just not wired that way. I'm like, this is messed up. Kids are the victim. Like some of the adults have to be willing to be inconvenienced and hurt to go and do something for these kids who are stuck in a system that's not working. And also I'm a part of another system that doesn't see them.
That's right.
You know, I'm part of a faith community that doesn't see them. And that was the work of our first little girl. And then she came back 2 months later. And after that, I was like Mama Bear claws came out of like, yeah, this system is just like moves these kids around like they're a FedEx box. It doesn't think about the trauma of being removed from one place, put in another place, removed from that place, put in another place. Like it.
Because the kids often, in the traditional world, the kids typically in like up to 4 or 5 homes every couple of years, right?
Yeah. I mean.
I just moved around.
Multiple stories. We've been connected with so many youth that have aged out. And we had one girl that's been in 103 placements. If you do the math on the age, she was young when she went in, and she's 18, obviously, when she aged out. It was like she moved every 2 months. If you can imagine moving your place, moving your parents, moving your school, moving your friends.
New house rules, new name.
A dog here, a cat here. No, like we could do this here, we can't do this here. Like maybe, Christian home, Muslim home. Like you have no control over where you land, and every 2 months, changing it. So it was, I'm like, and then you're like 18, you're like, you guys are going to do great. Good luck. And then you're mad at them when they go and make poor choices because of the way that you raised them for their lives. Like that was the layers being pulled back. The further I got deeper into the system, the more I was like, I can't leave. Like I can't, not that I thought that I was the one that needed to solve it. I just personally didn't feel okay with being like, good luck.
Yep.
I'm out. I'm going to go live my American dream life, and you guys hope it goes well.
So give me a thumbnail sketch of where that played out for your family. So you fostered the little girl, she left, she came back, then where else go for your family?
Yeah, so when we started fostering, our daughters were 3 and 1 at the time, and the little girl we got was about the same age as my second daughter, and so we fostered her for a year. She left. She came back 2 months later. We did a whole nother year with her in the court and legal system, and then we ended up adopting. We took a break for a few months after that. Never, had no plans of like stopping. Just like, let's settle with this
process
one.
This.
Yeah. And then we opened our home back up. Got another little girl for a year. Long, lengthy court process. We just kept kids forever. I built a relationship with her biological mom. Got to know her story. And that was another thing that, as the layers peeled back, I started seeing these moms differently because I was super judgmental.
Yeah,
like
those people
who did those things, they're horrible people. Like, how could you let this happen to your daughter? How could you do this to your daughter? And then I sat with them in the DFPS office while we're waiting for them to have their visit, and I'm hearing their story.
Yeah.
And their story is this little girl's story 20 years ago.
That's right.
And I was like, how would I want somebody treating this little girl 20 years from now if they had lived their mom's story?
That's right.
Like, I would want compassion. I would want empathy. And I wasn't showing any of that because it was easier for me to go, you screwed up, you made bad decisions, so therefore this is why you're going to lose your daughter. Rather than me taking a deeper dive and actually looking at her story and going, oh, but for the grace of God, is that not my story?
That's right.
like, raised by a single mom, dad walked out, then mom left, then raised by grandma who then died. Like, these are the stories of these women. They never had stability. They never had healthy relationships. They never had, they never got to see family. They were parenting out of the way that they'd been raised.
Yep.
So how could I sit here in judgment? So then I wasn't so much rooting against them, which I was in the beginning. I was more rooting for them to figure it out, not in a, we should return these kids at all costs and it doesn't matter if you've gotten it together, but in a way of like, how can I speak into them? Like when one of the bio moms we had, her daughter, she got cancer and I was her first phone call. The foster mom of her daughter.
Yep.
Like she had nobody else in her life that she could call and say, hey, I got, ovarian cancer. Just want to let you know. And I got to talk with her and pray with her. Like they have nobody.
That's right.
So that, so we fostered that little girl for a year. She left. We got a little boy. We fostered him, adopted him in the midst of his case. The second little girl came back. So then we got her and her little brother. We were a family of 6 kids, which I was like, whew, not a mom of 6 kids. That was a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. And then those 2 left, actually went with grandma, who we, had a relationship with for a long time. And they're still there to this day. And after we adopted my son, we just very much felt the Lord be like, okay, this is in your house. Yeah. You're done, but not done. I wasn't done in the system, but I was done in my home.
Okay, so 2006, you read the article, you get angry.
Right.
You can kind of get involved. Over the next couple of years, as you're doing that, we're trying to get your local church like, hey, let's get families. We got to do something about this. At some point, you and I and a couple other families like, hey, let's see a child placement agency created in the city that's actually like gospel centric, and let's not just ride the wave of this broken system as much as we can. So we're working that for a little while.
Right.
But about 10 years in, this clearly goes from the Smith family and Jennifer saying yes to Jesus, and even, hey, how do I get my friends and get my church to say yes more, to, hey, one church, one family is not going to solve this.
No.
And we got to change the game. So, like, when did that flip? When you stopped just going like, what do I got to do to check the box with Jesus? Yeah. But like, this is bigger than just me.
Yeah.
And bigger than my church.
Very much. The training with Linda was like the spark. I didn't know it then what it was going to become, but that was definitely the like light bulb for me on where's the church. Mm-hmm. And then as we started fostering that first little girl, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm on an island. Mm-hmm. And I need people that are in this space doing this because I feel very alone. It's like I would always say, like, I can't tell my normal friends about my life because they just don't. There's no context for it of fostering. So we started getting a little group of foster moms together just to like support each other. Mm-hmm. And then a few of us were like, hey, what would this look like to be in our church? We met with you and we're like, hey, what do you think? And you're like, okay, we strategically kind of start planning it out. And we present it to, our lead pastor. And he was like,
not now.
That's a good thing. It's just not, it's just not a now thing. And we're like, okay. So we just kind of did underground. I called it underground foster ministry because we just supported each other and shared with each other and even a couple other churches. But then, a couple years later, called back and he's like, hey, the Holy Spirit won't leave me alone. Let's go. We're going to do this. And so, sermon from the stage, info meeting that, you went to and Jesus punched you in the face. And that was when it became, and when I did that info meeting, I remember I had like 30 little folders of info because I didn't expect that many people to show up, and 100 people showed up. And I was like, oh, so like most people are like me. Like they just don't know.
Yep.
It wasn't that they were like, oh, we're not going to participate in that. We don't care about children who have been abused, neglected. No, they were like me. That day before I read that newspaper article, they had no idea. And so that was a big turning point of like, oh, really foster care is just really bad at marketing. Like they really haven't talked about the problem, talked about the ways to get involved, created clear pathways for people with trainings and programs or whatever. None of that existed. And so you had this huge gap between a system that was like the churches that involved and a church that was like, we don't even know that you exist. And we don't even know, even if we did, we don't know how to get involved.
How to serve.
Right. And so that was seeing that big gap. I was like, you know, my entrepreneurialness just like took off. And I was like, well, this is stupid easy. Like, let's build a bridge. And so that was the beginning of, you know, the alliance was how do we help people see that there's a crisis and see a pathway to get involved.
And we began to see like the story didn't have to be quite so infuriating if you had support systems. Like,
Right.
and I remember it being baffling. We lived in a city that had, I don't know, 1,200, 1,400 churches, depending on what you count. And literally it was like, if every church in our city just took in like 2 or 3 kids, we'd have no foster crisis.
Right.
So it wasn't like every Christian family. It was
Right.
2 or 3 families per church.
Yeah.
That's not crazy math.
No.
But there was like less than 5 churches that had anything they were formally doing.
Right.
Like it was easier to find a church. I felt like you could find a church with like a pet program more than you likely find one with a foster program.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, can we change that?
Yeah.
Could we change that? Could there be support systems so that families don't feel as overwhelmed? And,
Right.
And here we are.
And that's where the Lord led. And it was started small and it was very grassroots. And, you know, I didn't know, but the Lord was working on other people at the same time as he was, you know, walking alongside me in this journey, me kicking and screaming. And what we had started at Grace Point, another lady at another church had heard about, Teresa McCaleb at First Pres, and she and I met, and she's like, I've been praying about this for 2 years. I want to start something like this in our city, in our church. And so that was the beginning of the alliance. She had, you know, she's like, come, what would it take for this to be a nonprofit? I was like, money and wisdom, I guess. I don't know. She's like, well, come tell our missions board. And so I told them what we were doing. They gave me $25,000 and off to the races. And it's just been one thing after the other where it goes back to that whole analogy that I absolutely actually hate, which is you just have to take the next step that you see God leading you to. You don't get to know the 20 ahead of you. It was, all right, I'll go to foster classes. All right, I'll say yes to this kid. All right, I'll go pitch to the missions board. All right, I'll, talk in front of my church. Like it was all these little yeses. What I wanted God to do was tell me, and here's your strategic plan for the next 10 years, and this is what it's all going to look like. But actually, if he'd have done that, I probably would have run the other way. I'd been like, I'm out. So it was his grace.
So I know future episodes of Running Toward, you'll have all sorts of leaders and families on, and some will be amazing Christians who did have a dream and a passion and ran at this with like open arms.
Right.
They're amazing.
Right.
But it's 2 people who are not them. In case you're someone who's like more like us, if someone's listening to this and they've got the nudge, but they're afraid of all the things they don't know and what it'll cost, like you and I, what would you tell them?
The first thing I did when, other than argue with the Lord, and gave him all the reasons that he was picking the wrong person.
And he was like, oh, great point. Didn't know that.
Right. He was like, oh, I see that now. No. Was I met with another foster mom. I went to my church and I was like, hey, who do you know that's fostering? And I took her to coffee. And I was like, tell me all about this system that, I don't know anything about. And so I think just getting connected with a foster parent that or somebody that's done it or been in it, connect with them and just take them to coffee and just ask them questions. I mean, we have a team of 12 and 9 of us have fostered. So our whole team is happy to meet with people. We do it all the time, but it's just say yes to that next step, but whatever that next step is. So maybe your next step is just, I'm going to take somebody to coffee and ask questions.
So this is called Running Towards. We're talking about the hidden crisis in foster care. The show's called Running Toward, the hidden crisis in foster care and family. We're in San Antonio. You've now got over 130 churches doing something in this foster world, all different levels of how mature and wild it is. But even today, it's better than it was 10 years ago.
It is.
But how many kids are in foster care in San Antonio today?
So in any given year, over the course of the year, 3,000 kids will come in and out of foster care. Some of them are repeat offenders, like they come in, they go home, they come back, but 3,000 kids.
And what's the peak you've seen this past year where there's like no place for them to go?
Yeah, the crazy part is that number kind of has stayed the same, which, it's kind of on some level expected. We're in a city of 2 million people. But the crazy part has been that though we have more people in the game, we're still struggling to find placements for some of our harder kids. And so, I mean, this was me, not to throw shade, but I was like, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I want 0 to 1. Like that's and you get to choose that.
Yep.
And so that there are kids that are 9 and older, nobody takes them. So there's still kids that are sitting in offices waiting for placements. There's still kids who we put on airplanes to El Paso. Like we have a guy on our team who said yes to a 6-year-old in about 15 seconds because if he had said no, they were putting her and her siblings on a plane to El Paso because they had no homes in San Antonio for them. We still have siblings getting separated. We still have, kids going into shelters, which is just a modern day orphanage that we rebranded.
Yep.
So we still have challenges with placements of kids, but we do have more awareness. We do have more people stepping in supportive roles, which helps those families say yes. I would say the thing that shifted too over the past 10 years is the placements have gotten harder. The trauma, the abuse, it's gotten worse. And so I think that it makes it even a little more challenging because these kiddos are coming out with, my goodness, some significant trauma. Doesn't change the fact that they need somebody to love them and help them heal, but it's heartbreaking what's happening to kids.
I remember we got a chance to honor Linda Hurtubise once at a church service, and I remember acknowledging, because she's agnostic. I think her biggest issue was with Christians more than it was with God. And I remember telling her, I think God's actually on her side, because you read the Bible, so it's all like the Old Testament God being the angry God. He's actually consistent, but in the Old Testament, he got most angry with religious people who were ignoring the vulnerable. Right. Like that's when he'd get hot. That's when the tables got flipped. That's when tables got flipped, was when religious people didn't care about orphans and widows and corruption and abuse and were even complicit with it. Turned a blind eye or complicit with it. That's when God of the Old Testament would use hard language and do hard things. And I told Linda, you're frustrated with the church, and I think God is too. Right. Like this is actually an area he'd be on your side. And so my encouragement as well, just be in the same way you Jesus punched me and my family at that meeting. There is a Jesus punch in all this. There is hey, all your reasons are legitimate. I have them all. All the reasons not to do it, true. Right. And we were bought with a price, and Jesus chose to enter the mess for us, and he literally says, this is what my people will do. Yeah. And so there's an invitation to that. And praise God, today, there's the babysitting collaborative, and there's agencies, and there's a whole different ecosystem doesn't make it easy. No. But it is not, you don't have to be a lone ranger anymore. Right. And this is the kind of thing both can change our city, change the next generation, change the landscape of all these issues, and it's doable and it's needed. Yeah, and that's my hope and prayer is just that everybody just continues to take that next most obedient step, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be the 5-year plan, the 1-year plan, just like, what is God calling you to today? And that may be it. There may be more steps coming, but don't be scared of the 1 because you don't know number 10. That's right. And don't be scared to wrestle with the Lord on what he's asking you to do. Like, he's fine with that. We see that throughout Scripture. Yep. Like you said, Moses, David, like there's so many stories of people being like, not me. Not me. Not my plan. I don't, even like periods of running away from it, literally running away from it, Jonah. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I will go the furthest place to not do this. And God's just so patient. He's gracious. He just keeps chasing after us because he wants something for us, not from us. And I think that's one of the things that foster care, being involved in the foster system, is I've grown so much in my faith that I don't know another path that would have grown me in my faith as much as entering into foster care did. Yeah, I know we don't. This will be a whole other episode, and you'll do it probably later when you take back the hosting seat. But I know one of the things that you war against in this space, and what I've heard nothing about in this conversation. This is not a invitation to be a Messiah complex and go rescue a bunch of kids out of our strength. Right. This is like this is as much about God fathering us through obedience and the mess of him breaking our own strongholds of our nice Christian controlled life, so that we can experience the fullness of his kingdom.
Yeah.
And so we can demonstrate his kingdom. Like, just be prepared for this to mess us up. This is not us running in as on our horses to go rescue people and be the heroes. We're part of the mess.
We are. It's like Linda, churches are run by imperfect people. Fostering is done by imperfect people. Parenting is done by imperfect people. Marriage is done by imperfect people. Like, all of it is jacked up because we're all jacked up too. And that doesn't scare God. That doesn't surprise him. And it also doesn't keep him from saying, I know this, all of this about you. I'm still calling you
That's the
to
gospel.
go do this. Like, that's the part I think I learned most, was like, I don't have to have it together. I don't have to have it all figured. I wasn't a perfect parent before I started parenting other people's kids. Like, but you don't have to have all that figured out to move forward. He knows that when he calls you into it.
So God can use a physical therapist from West Texas who doesn't like the idea of fostering and adopting to now be executive director of one of the coolest agencies trying to change the world of foster care in this region. I wonder what God will do with you. As you host this show going forward and I get relieved after one episode, I look forward to seeing how God uses the faithful telling of those stories and conversations to hopefully Jesus punching people even over the internet.
Yeah.
And more than that, change the city, change lives. So thank you. I regularly tell people you're one of the most courageous, fierce fighters for good in the city. And I know even non-believers who respect you and the church more because of the way you fought for this. And so
Thank you.
thanks for your courage.
Thanks for being on the inaugural episode and walking this whole long journey with me and being one of my biggest cheerleaders.
My
Appreciate
joy.
it.
And we're good.
Sweet.